Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So, the previous episode, we made some awesome progress on the Supra's nitrous install. I did a little bit of off-camera work in the form of this little mounting bracket and mounting pad that you see here, and that has virtually eliminated any of the drumming and moving around that the nitrous rail had before, and much happier, feel much better now that this thing is secure, and I don't have to worry about it fracturing the hard lines or the nitrous nozzles. But that is not what we're going to be working on today. So today, we're going to be moving backward to move forward. And what I mean by that is we're going to drop the majority of the driveline out of the Supra. So, as I showed in the last video, our transmission fluid leak is back, and our fluid pedal is gradually making its way over towards the lift post. Yeah, I need to pull the transmission out anyways to fix the adapter plate and to put the correct size fasteners in. So we'll do that, and also drop the whole rear subframe out of this car in preparation to be able to fix the one of the mounts on it that is not set up the best way. So I'm missing one of the fasteners. I stripped one of the mounting bosses out on the chassis, so I need to fix that. And I have this tap that I borrowed from a buddy of mine a long time ago, so we'll see if that's the correct thread. If so, we'll get it fixed, hopefully. If not, then we'll figure something else out. But to start all of this off, I need to get the car up, drain the transmission fluid again. I'll do that off camera since I'm sure you guys don't want to watch me drain fluid again. And then we can start moving forward with the disassembly of this. As far as I can tell, I have everything on the transmission ready to come out, or ready for it to come out, aside from sliding the converter back and disconnecting the transmission mount and obviously lowering it out of the car. So if you see here, you can see transmission fluid all over the front of the pan again. So it seems to be leaking from the same spot, and it's not the biggest deal in the world, but obviously not exactly what I wanted to be doing with this thing when I could be working on other parts of it. But it is what it is, and rather than gripe about it, the only thing to do now is to fix it. So let me get my transmission cart over here, and I can get this transmission dropped out of the way, and then start pulling the adapter off, and we can get that at least sorted out today. The transmission is out of the Supra, and I went ahead and I pulled the whole adapter plate setup off. Stupid light. To see if I could spot where the oil leak was coming from, and it looks like it's coming from the back of the pan. I'm not sure if you guys can see this on camera or not, but there's some oil seeping down from the back here. But the good news is the rear main seal looks good. It appears to just be the back of the pan. So that'll be a problem to solve when the engine actually comes out. As I'm not pulling it right now, we can deal with a little bit of the oil leak, and I might play around a little bit and see if I can find an interim solution for that. But other than that, the flywheel or the flex plate looks really good. And here's what we're working with for the actual adapter deal here. So the reason this is all out of here in the first place, these holes right here are set up for 7/16 fasteners, as opposed to these on the converter that are set up for 1/2" fasteners. So there's obviously a size discrepancy between the two components, and I don't want to run undersized fasteners, as by the time the torque and everything is transmitted through this will rotate and it'll either break the adapter plate here, break the fastener, and I doubt it, but it could also damage the converter itself. So I'm going to go ahead and enlarge these holes, and it will be a little bit tricky to do so since it's a slotted hole as opposed to just a round hole. But these are the ones that fit onto the converter, so that's what we have to work with. So let me go ahead, get this put over in the drill press, get a drill bit ready to go, and then we can hopefully make pretty quick work of adapting the adapter to 1/2" fasteners. After a little bit of drill press and carbide work, we now have the adapter plate. I have my 1/2" bolts, and if I go ahead and slide all these guys in their homes, let's see. This one's a little bit tight right here, but that's all right. But we have our 3 1/2" bolts. There we go. 3 1/2" bolts in their homes, and I feel much more secure having those as opposed to the 7/16 bolts that were in it before. So these fit the converter much better, and we have much less wiggle to them than what we had with the 7/16 bolts. So I don't have any worries about trying to put power through this now, and we should be good to go to put all this back together once we get this stupid transmission pan sealed up once and for all. Now that the transmission, at least the adapter plate, is squared away, I can shift my focus and focus my efforts on the subframe. And this is going to be a little bit more labor intensive, as I'll need to drain and drop the fuel cell, and I have some modifications to the fuel cell that I want to do while it is drained and out. And you guys can see that very quickly, this is the if you give a mouse a cookie scenario. If you guys have read that book, the mouse is given a cookie, and then the mouse keeps asking for more and more. And right now, the car is the mouse, and I am the giver of the cookie, I guess. But the metaphors aside, what we need to fix is, if you see this side, we have this large bolt on that billet aluminum mount, and this side, we don't. And up in there, we have some beautifully stripped threads that need to be remedied. And in order to remedy them, I need to drop all of this. I need to drop the whole subframe and take the whole backside of the car apart just to fix one simple threaded hole that I should have never been stripped in the first place. So we're not going to get into that today, as I'm sure you guys can see over my shoulder there. It's already dark outside, and it's about time for me to get out of here for the day. But made good progress on the transmission stuff now, and now that the transmission is out of the car, I can go ahead and pull the pan back off of it, take it over to Matt's whenever he has a spare moment, and we can get the pan seal hopefully finally squared away, where we're not putting transmission fluid down on the ground any longer. And like I said a few minutes ago, maybe I can play around with the oil leak some and get some of that mitigated as well. But I'm going to get out of here for today, and we will reconvene later to keep going on this, drop the subframe out to get the rest of this wrapped up and get a few more issues sorted with this car, and finally instill the confidence in myself to actually make some power with it and get ready to make some passes this upcoming season. Today is the day for the subframe repair, and the more that I've thought about this, the more that I am going to try to fix this without dropping the subframe out, as it pays to do your due diligence. Try to fix something the easy way before progressing onto the more difficult options. Just part of it's the way that diagnostics work, and it's the way that I'm going to try to make this this repair work. So I pulled the corresponding fastener out of the other side of the subframe just to verify thread pitch, verify that the tap that I have is the correct tap for this job, and it turns out that it is. So what I need to do is right in through there. I probably have to take a little bit more of the aluminum out of the solid mount, and then if all goes well, I can run the tap through the little mounting boss on the chassis, reinstall or recondition the threads, and then find where the other portion of the billet mount is, bolt everything back together, and everything will be good to go. So let's try it the easy way first before progressing on to the big undertaking that is removing the rear subframe. Well, I kind of feel like an idiot now, but that ended up being a very easy fix. So taking this is an M14 by 1.50 thread pitch bolt. It's a pretty big bolt, but it's what holds the subframe in. And if we come over to the side with our stripped mount, and if I can find the threads with my left hand, there we go. Look at that. We have threads again, and all is well on this side. So I have to find where the second portion of this mount is. They are just these aluminum pucks right here that are turned on the bottom side to clamp onto the bottom of the subframe, and then I'll have to get another one of these bolts or something similar to fasten everything together. But that subframe repair is done, and I've sat on doing this for a long time as I was looking at it from the glass half empty perspective, where I'll have to drop the subframe. That'll be a huge undertaking, and I don't want to do it right now, so we'll do it later. And if I would have known that I could just run a tap up into the mount and everything would be good, then I would have done it pretty much immediately after I pulled that bolt out. But that's no big deal. It's fixed now. That's what matters the most. And just have to find where one piece is, order another bolt, and everything will be good to go. The other puck has been located, so now I can go ahead and actually, no, I can't put it back together just yet, as I need to either find another one of these bolts somewhere around here or spec it and buy a new bolt from probably a McMaster car. So good news, found the hardest to find portion of this in the form of this puck, but I'm still on the hunt for another fastener. So let me do some searching around, see what I can't find, or if I can find anything around here that will solve this issue, and then we can go from there. So now that the rear subframe debacle is solved, I'm going to try to do a ghetto fix to fix the actual engine oil leak. So it seemed to be leaking around the rear main housing, kind of in through this seam right here. And to fix this properly, I'd have to pull the engine, remove the pan, clean everything, reinstall, so on and so forth. and I'm just not going to do that right now. So the interim solution, which is not the correct solution, and do not follow in my footsteps with this, is I'm going to take some RTV and smear it along that whole seam right there to maybe put my finger in the dike, as the old that old story goes, and maybe slow down or stop the actual engine oil leak from continuing to happen. So not the best way to do it, but it's what I can do right now, and while everything's apart, I might as well try it. I'm not any further back if it doesn't work, and I could end up being further ahead if it does work. So let's give it a shot, see what happens, and we'll go from there once the transmission and everything's back in the car and we can run it again. I'm not proud of this, and I have very low hopes that it will be successful, but I had to try something while this was apart. So this big ugly patch of RTV along here is the attempted solution. So again, we'll see if it actually works when everything's back together and we have oil going through the oil pan and everything else. Do not do this on your projects, and like I said, I'm not proud that I just did it on this thing, but it was the lesser of the two evils, and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't, whatever. That'll get sealed up when the engine, you're sealed up properly when the engine finally comes out, when it's paint and body time for this thing. So beyond that, we'll need to pull the transmission pan off of the transmission again so it can be properly sealed up. So I'm not sure exactly how I want to go about doing this. Maybe just roll the transmission over on its lid here on the top side, and then maybe I can do that a little bit more easily without creating a giant mess. And I also want to come in here and cut this upper ear of the transmission case, or the bell housing, off, as that will give me a little bit more clearance to for the lines and everything else that run along the backside of the engine. So let me take a break for a couple of minutes, come back, start working on the transmission stuff, and hopefully before too long we'll have those two projects knocked out and we can get the transmission squared away in the not too distant future. I've been texting back and forth with Matt in terms of how we're going to execute the new sealing idea for this thing. And he's actually going to end up bringing his scanner out here, scan the transmission, as the transmission rail, or the pan rail on the transmission rather, is narrower than what it is on the pan itself. So until then, I'm going to go ahead and put the pan back on here, just to prevent any debris or anything from getting into the more sensitive portions of the transmission. And at that point in time, you can flip the transmission over, see about pulling the bell housing off of here, so that way I can trim this upper ear. And I'm going to put that back on, and everything will be good with the transmission, aside from getting the pan sealed up. So let's go ahead and do that and see where else we go from there. there we have clearance on the top side of the bell housing now. So if I were to give you guys one bit of advice from this, it's probably don't cut up SFI parts. This is one of those do as I say, not as I do scenarios. I think that manufacturers get a little bit testy if you modify the SFI components and if you would ever have to make a warranty claim or something like that. Thankfully, I don't really care too much about warranties on virtually any parts, as I'm modifying just about everything, and warranties generally don't apply to the stuff that I'm doing here. But if you can at all help it, don't cut up your SFI parts. This time it was kind of unavoidable just for additional clearance for the plumbing components and the wiring that goes on the backside of the engine and the cylinder head. And now we have, I guess, this much more clearance, and I made sure to cut out so the Reed logo is still visible. I'll probably put that on the shelf as it's kind of a neat piece. But bell housing's modified, transmission is ready to be scanned, ready to be looked at as far as figuring out a method to actually seal the pan up on it. But that isn't going to happen today. It's maybe in a few days, but during this upcoming week. Hopefully Matt can come out here, scan that. We can get a game plan together of actually, I guess I can talk about what we're going to do. We can get a game plan together to machine O-ring grooves into the transmission pan. Now, I tried 2 different style gaskets, didn't have luck with those, and have some cleanup work to do because of the method that I used to try to seal it this last time. So to avoid having that same thing happen in the future, an O-ring doesn't leave a residue behind typically, and it seems like kind of the best option and the best way to machine this and to make it all work copaesthetically together. So hopefully we can figure out an O-ring solution for this that works out well, and we can get this thing finally sealed up and finally stop putting transmission fluid on the ground. So with all that being said, I'm kind of at a stopping point of what I can do here today. Now, I can't really do much more with the transmission. I guess I could reinstall it in the car, but I'm not going to get into that right now. And the subframe stuff, I can't do much more with that until I get my other bolt for it, which my buddy Sean, that you guys have seen a few times in these videos, he's the one who lent me the tap, and he has the other bolt for the subframe. So it needs to be reconditioned, as the threads were pretty well boogered when that bolt came out. So I ordered a tap, and I need to get the bolt back from him and return this tap that I borrowed from him a long time ago. So we'll get those things taken care of. The rear subframe will be squared away, and I have other fasteners coming for the bolt the converter to the adapter plate, other little low-profile nylock nuts. And I can't put any of this stuff back together really until that stuff comes. So I'm kind of stuck right now, but in the next few days when all of that stuff arrives, I can start putting this back together and getting all of it squared away. And hopefully at that point in time, everything will, all this stuff will be checked off, no more leaks, and we can finally start looking forward as far as when this thing can get on the dyno and make some power. So without me droning on anymore, as I don't want to turn this into more of a talking episode than it already is, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in, for watching things go on with the Mark IV here. We'll get back on the Mark II very soon, but we need to get this thing put back together so it's operable and drivable again first. So that'll be what the next little bit is comprised of, and then we can finally start making some progress with the old Mark II again. So with all that being said and all of that droning on, that'll be the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next episode.